Hi there. Now we'll talk about deindustrialization. Deindustrialization means when you start focusing less on the industry, start focusing less on manufacturing of a product, and you move out to either to the primary sector where you're extracting, or to the tertiary sector where you're providing the services. So as you remember, there are three levels of production: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary is natural resources like farming. Secondary is manufacturing, and tertiary is services. Deindustrialization happens when a country stops putting in efforts in the secondary sector, or rather move to the tertiary sector or move to the primary sector. What does that mean? For example, let's talk about UK. UK was one of the best countries who was focusing more on the secondary sector, on the manufacturing, but then it realized that there is more profits and higher well-being in the tertiary sector. So what it did was it moved out of the tertiary sector and started focusing on services like retail shop, hotels, tourism. Now, this doesn't mean that they didn't have the product. They would simply import a product from a secondary sector from another country and simply focus more on the tertiary sector within their country. They started focusing on banking. Tertiary deindustrialization also means when you move out of the secondary sector and maybe either go to the tertiary or you go to primary. So there is another example of a country which has been focusing more, that's India. Uh, they have been spending some time on the secondary sector, but then they later realized that their bigger profits and bigger interest is in the primary sector. So they are into farming. They are producing agricultural products. Now remember, deindustrialization is not a bad thing. Deindustrialization. It's not a bad thing. It is what's good for the country. So if a country thinks that uh, moving out of the secondary sector and going to the tertiary sector, you get more, you satisfy more wants, satisfy more needs, produce more products, then perfectly, you go here. If the country says, all right, moving out of the secondary sector, you go to farming, agriculture, more people need fruits and food, so you move out to the primary sector. So the world at large is moving towards tertiary sector. It's moving toward IT products and moving towards services. For example, in retail shop, now you will see websites like Amazon. You will see websites like souk.com. I'm not sure if you know that. You will see website like Flipkart, OLX. These are all websites where you sell products online. So rather you have a retail shop, you sell products online, and back in the old days you used to manufacture these products. Now you simply sell them online or or through a store. So yes, that's what deindustrialization is all about. It is simply moving out. If I will allow me to write it over here, it's simply a decline in secondary sector, and the country is focusing more on tertiary or primary sector now. I hope this helps. So now we know what deindustrialization is. Let's just talk about another sector in our economy, and it's called private sector. What is private sector? Or another word for this is also private economy. This means when the businesses in that economy or in that country are all run by private individuals. Private individuals are the owners, or private companies. This means that the businesses are not run by the government. They're all run by the private sector. So businesses are not owned by the government. These businesses will make their own decision about what to produce, how to produce, what price to choose, how to sell it. So businesses make their own decision. Regarding product, regarding price, regarding where to sell, and anything and everything. Of course, government is there, but the government is only focusing on laws. Government focus on laws. Companies or private sector has to follow laws. So as long as you're following law, government would not interfere. So this is called a private sector. And an example of a private sector is any country around you. I believe UK, USA, India, any country around you is a private sector, has a private sector in it. Now there's another example, or there is another sector which is called the public sector. A public sector is run by the government. All the products are produced by the government. All the services are provided by the government. There are no private owners. Run by the government. No private owners. You wouldn't see any individual or a private person. You cannot open up a business in a public sector. So the government or the public authority make the decision about what to produce, how to produce. So the decision, government makes all the decisions. They would provide you with the food, so they make the decision on the product, they make the decision on the price, they make the decision on the place, where to sell. So government would provide you with all the food and everything. And normally government only hires employees, hire public. So private individual are all employees. They're nothing, just employees. So no business owners. Only employees, people. these people cannot be business owners. They're just simple employees working in the factories owned by the government. All factories owned by the government. Now, what's the example? The example comes to my mind is, and I may be wrong, is North Korea. There might be any other countries, but I'm not exactly sure about. But the most common example is the private sector. So most companies, most businesses have private sectors in it. Now there are countries which has a mixture of both. It has a mixture of both private sector and a public sector. So what is that these businesses or these countries called? Let me tell you. So a country which has both, a country which has both private and public sector is called mixed economy. And you will see mixed economy around you, everywhere around you. A mixed economy has both private sector and the public sector. So mixed economy would have businesses of private owners, people running their businesses, private owners, and businesses by government. Now, government normally does businesses like it will provide you transport, it would provide you maybe hospitals, it would provide you utility like electricity. But these are all businesses, right? You're paying them and they might be getting profit out of it. That totally depends on the government how they're using the profit. But yes, mixed economy has both public, which is government, plus private. And the example is around you everywhere. Like I've said, UK has both public and private. USA has both public and private. Almost every other country, India, Pakistan. What other countries do we have? Germany. Almost every other country around you, you would see these countries have both. China, these countries have both a public sector and a private sector. I hope now we understand the the four concepts we have studied. I'll quickly take you through these concepts. De-industrialization. Now we know what de-industrialization is. Private sector. Now we know what private sector is. Totally owned by private individuals. Public sector, totally owned by the government. And mixed economy. Mixed economy is a mixture of both public sector and private sector. If you have any questions, please do write to me, send me a direct message, a private message. I'll be happy to answer.